What do you do when you know you want change, but you don't know what you want that change to look like? So many choices and decisions and the pressure to have it all figured out. Today's conversation is going to be about navigating that type of change, especially when you're leaving something really successful behind and learning how to move forward with purpose. I'm Karen Maurer. Welcome to Her Next Chapter, the show where we talk about helping women financially and emotionally prepare for, move through, and thrive during life's transitions. We want that new beginning to be started with clarity and confidence. I am thrilled to welcome today's guest, Susan Conrad. Susan is a seasoned executive entrepreneur and the founder and president of Icon Partners, where she helps entrepreneurial leaders turn complexity into practical solutions and scale culture on purpose. That's a lot. Earlier in her career, Susan founded and led Icon Properties for more than 15 years before selling the company and stepping into a new chapter in leadership. She's in financial services and ultimately founded her firm focused on purpose-driven growth. Susan, welcome to Her Next Chapter.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here with you, and I'm excited to be on this podcast and so glad that you've picked this topic of transitions because I don't know a person that hasn't impacted. So
exactly. Like we were just talking about, everything seems to be a transition. And you have certainly lived through one that a lot of people dream about. You've got a successful career and something made you want to make a change. Take us through that journey.
It did. So the premise for me starting Icon Properties was really the result of selling our family business. Okay. We had grown that from 3 offices and 100 team members to 22 offices and over 2,000 people on the team.
Oh, wow.
And so that was an exciting run. We had great opportunity for acquisition work. I was the chief financial officer and did a lot of integrations, a lot of negotiations. As you might imagine, we ended up acquiring some competitors in the same market. And we had to say, hey, lay down your weapons. You are now on the same team. Right. And so it was a really dynamic environment. But I was also trying to raise a family at the same time. And so when we sold the business, I was offered an opportunity to go to Florida and be part of the leadership team. And I had these 3 young children. And I thought, if I do that, I don't know that we're going to have the family that we were hoping to have.
Okay.
And so that was really the impetus around starting Icon Properties.
Early on, that it was so important to be home for the kids, and then really developed an opportunity out of the business that was there, right?
It was absolutely based in my values and what I wanted to make sure we were doing as a family, but also I think it informed how I showed up as a leader and as a business owner.
Right.
And so always anchoring back to that became probably the most common thread as I think about some of the transitions. So transitioning from a family business to being an entrepreneur.
Right.
And then fast forward 2013, and I'm thinking, the reason I started this business is about to leave town. I had 2 in high school and 1 in college. And I looked around and I thought, this has been fun. I've learned a lot. I've made some incredible relationships with people.
Sure.
But there was just this yearning to do something different. I had done that for a while. We had been through some big challenges, which I think had opened my eyes to there's more to do out beyond the real estate. And so people had, kind of looked at me as I was either a finance person or a real estate person. And I'm like, actually, I think I'm a different kind of a person. And so that's what got me started thinking, maybe there's more. I am not limited by the same parameters that I had before.
Right.
And I thought, well, I wonder what that could be. I think I might try something different.
Well, and I love recognizing how people were identifying you and to say, wait a minute, this is how people are perceiving me and, quote, maybe labeling me. And that's not true to who I am, or at least who I am now and who I want to be going forward. And as you mentioned, kind of when our raising the children days slow down or start to transition and look different,
right,
our career can start to look different and our opportunities are different. So how did you dial into your authentic self at that point and start to really look at the consulting side of things?
Well, it was a journey. Not to overuse the word, but it really was a series of conversations, and it started off as an inkling. I'm like, am I nuts? I have a business.
Right.
I have people who are doing well in this business. There is a path forward for this business. I just really wasn't as excited about it. And honestly, the thought of doing that for another 25 years, I was like, I
think a lot of people feel that way.
I mean, we all have those days, don't
Right.
get me wrong. But just, in general, I thought, well, so I reached out to a friend of mine. Jan Teresi Mokwa was a great mentor of mine. She has since passed. I do speak about her in the present tense because I feel like she's with me all the time.
I'm sure she is.
And so I reached out to Jan and I said, could you meet me over at the Ritz? I need to have a conversation with somebody who can keep this confidential.
Sure.
And she's like, sure. So we get a glass of wine and I said, I think I want to get out of my business and I want to do something else. And she said, oh, okay. She goes, what's the problem? I said, I don't know what the something else is. I just know it's not this.
Wow.
And that was that was a hard thing to say out loud. But I thought if I could say it to somebody I trusted,
right.
I thought of all the people that I knew, she might be a really good companion.
Well, and somebody that you respect, that you share that with, then you really want to move forward with it because you don't want to be that person. I never want to be that person that says I'm going to do something and then doesn't do it. And so I always have that accountability partner, if you will, that person that supports you, keeps you on track, but also lets you find your way on your own without influencing you with their values or with their ideas. So it sounds like you really dialed into finding the right person to help walk that journey with you.
And she was a phenomenal strategic thinker. We had done some work together in different arenas and, boards that I had served on and some of the nonprofit world and some of the community efforts here in St. Louis.
So you knew she was
And I knew Jan, and she had just written a book. And so I was part of her senior book club, her CEO book club, and we helped edit the book.
Oh, great.
And we helped her put that together. So I said, okay, can you help me?
Yeah.
And she said, I'd really like to try.
Oh.
And I said, okay. And she goes, but I'm not going to tell you what to do.
Right.
She said, what I am going to ask is that you don't make any major decisions for a year.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like,
that must have been hard.
You don't understand.
An implementer.
Yeah. I mean, and time kills deals. First rule of real estate is location, location, location. Second rule is time kills deals. You need to move. You need to keep things in motion.
Sure.
And she said, you need to slow down and you need to just listen. You need to start talking to people and you need to go. She called it a listening tour. I kind of call it a discovery tour. And basically not an agenda about achieving a specific goal. It's about exploring opportunities. Talk to people who seem to enjoy what they're doing.
Interesting.
Look at industries that you find interesting and ask people some questions. I wasn't looking for a job. I could find a job.
Right.
I was looking to make a major career change. And she said, that's a different kind of a process. And she was exactly right.
Right.
And I don't know that it took quite a year, but I probably talked to over 45 people.
Sure.
Very deliberately around understanding just options that were in play and things to consider.
Right.
And I had to do it while I was still running a business.
Oh, so you did this at the same time?
Oh, absolutely. Because you really can't say to your team, hey,
bye-bye.
Happy Monday. I don't think I want to be here anymore.
Right.
So I needed to find a buyer for the business, and I needed to really have a sense of what did I want to go after? What was interesting to me? And, how would I go about doing it? And so having those conversations opened up my thinking to a whole bunch more than I had no idea, and I had great opportunities come out of that. Hey, would you ever consider joining us? And, talked to several companies about that. And in the end, ended up going to a financial services firm. One of my clients was adding to their senior leadership team. And they said, we're trying to grow the business. Could you come help us do that?
And that's what you chose.
And that's what I chose. So
interesting.
If you had told me that that's what I was going to be doing 20 years prior, I would have thought maybe you had gotten into some too much
Craziness.
alcohol. Yes. So,
and it is fascinating to really dial into all of your options when you don't otherwise take the time to slow down and look at them. And I know that was really important to you, was slowing down, not moving too quickly. I tend to, make decisions very quickly and implement very quickly. And, my husband actually has really taught me to hold on, wait a bit before you send that email, wait a bit before you make that phone call, or take some more time to take it another level deeper before really making those decisions. And it really requires a lot of patience that we have when we're raising kiddos and running businesses, but to have it for ourselves and to give ourselves that grace to take that time to say, we deserve to give ourselves that time to really explore where that perfect fit is going to be, or at least maybe not even the perfect fit, but the next step that makes sense for you. So you moved into that role then in the finance company.
I did. So joined that team and really helped change a lot of the internal movement. It was a very client-centric group, which was great, but there was a need to focus more on building a sustainable business model and then really unleashing the potential that was within the company already.
Right.
And so that was, that was a bigger challenge than I had ever been involved in. Thinking about real estate, you're like, well, we've got some land, we've got some entitlements, we've got some financing, some design, some build, some tenanting. There was a play pattern that you could follow.
Sure.
I moved into human behavior.
Right.
And it is not nearly as predictable as even the unpredictable real estate market.
Well, and that's where I was going to go with that, is that, you can bring these fabulous ideas and obviously this is your gift and your talent to, from the outside look and say, okay, these are the changes that need to be made for this to really be a well-oiled machine. But how do you control the fact that you can't control those people and that human behavior? And we can suggest and create and show what it's going to look like if we do it. But if they don't do it, it doesn't happen.
Right.
And is that frustrating, or how do you deal with that?
Sure, it can be. But I think as leaders of businesses or leaders of people, our job is to create the environment for that to happen. And so you can look at your systems. Are we incenting the right behavior? Are we removing the friction in what it takes to get the work done that makes things frustrating?
Right.
And are we encouraging collaboration? So where are we trying to create that opportunity? And then are we providing people with the coaching and the training and the feedback?
Sure.
Just the feedback to say, you've got a blind spot here.
Right.
This might be holding you back and you're unaware of it. I'd like to help you. Right. But in the end, it does require commitment from both sides.
Right. And time.
It does.
I think we see that in our own firm. I ran my own business for 25 years. And sometimes you're running with blinders on. You're so focused on that client and the growth that happens without you even recognizing that the growth is happening. And then all of a sudden, for me, I would bring somebody new on the team and they'd say, why do we do things this way? And I'd say, I don't know. It's just, we've always done it that way and it's not broken. So, but there was always room for improvement. There was always room to implement the new skill sets that came on board. But I didn't have a structure to do that because I was a smaller firm. And now being part of a larger firm, we have that infrastructure where we can implement. We have the outside influence and the consultation that somebody like you brings to the table. But at the end of the day, it's up to the actual team, the actual people to implement those strategies. And it must be very fulfilling for you, though, to actually see it come to life and to see it in play and to see that company turn around or achieve those goals that they may not have even defined until you came on board.
Well, I think it comes back to something we talked about earlier, which is, companies have values, companies have purpose, right? You exist beyond just the doing, right? You're here for a reason. people choose to be on your team, they could go anywhere, but they choose to be on your team for a reason. There's something more valuable here to them. It aligns to when I talk about achieving results on purpose, what we're really trying to do is inspire that ownership in every person on the team.
I love that. I love that.
And so when we can get really clear on where we're headed, what the reason we exist and what we want to achieve, what's that compelling picture of the future that means something to all of us,
right?
I can connect that to what I'm doing today. Then what happens is, instead of you having to worry, how do I motivate people? People access their intrinsic motivation and say, I see what the opportunity is for me or for the people around me that I care for. So how do we get there?
Right.
And so on the bad days, when it's hard and it didn't go as planned, we've dealt with some of that this morning, right?
Sure.
So when it doesn't go as planned, you can dig into that resilience and that reserve and go, okay, but I know it's worth it.
Right.
And so that's really what we're trying to tap into is, okay, how do we create a really solid business model? Right? We need to have that strong engine of growth. And then we want to fuel it with great culture and a great environment that says, this is how we maximize the potential within everybody here.
Well, and I think you touched on, it's so important to have those values and the culture of the firm identified, which we have here. I mean, we're in a conference room that they're all labeled after the values of the firm. And then recently I wrote a whole value statement for my team, and how does that weave into the values of the firm? And I've even gone a step further, and my husband and I have a value marriage statement, if you will, of what's important to us as a couple and as a family. And when we are together with our blended family, what is important for us to model for them? And having that foundation, not only in your family, in your team, in your business, it really does help drive how you interact with everybody, professionally, personally, at the grocery store, at the car wash, wherever you are, just staying grounded to those values is so important. But again, it takes time and effort to identify them and courage and strength to stick with them. But you see the results when it happens.
Well, and I think to your point, you can't take it for granted.
Right.
And so you need to figure out, how do I activate those values? And it's in the conversations, it's in the way you work, it's in the way you resolve conflict.
Right.
You're faced with decisions all day long saying we have to make some choices. Well, if I do that through the lens of my values, it helps us understand why certain choices are made.
Right.
And so it just creates a completely different kind of a working environment, but to your point, a family environment. And it also acts as either an attraction. People want to be part of that.
Right.
And it also acts as a repellent. Somebody who says, that's not what I value. Great.
Right.
That's better to know that than to go through the time and say, now what do you want me to do with, why is there this disconnect or this conflict? And you're like, hey, it's real easy. This is how we make decisions. This is how we, work with our clients. This is how we resolve, how do you solve for a holiday with a blended family? You've got all those layers of complication. Go back to your values and say, well, if this is what we value, how do we respond?
How we're going to deal.
Yeah.
I love it.
So
now looking back, making all of these professional transitions, seems like it went very smooth.
Oh, heck no.
Okay. Well, and I was going to say, it seems that you were prepared in the sense that you didn't leave one position till you had the next one kind of in play. So there was that type of preparation. But when you say it didn't go smoothly, was it for lack of preparation? Was it outside influence that made it a rocky road? What are some things, for a listener right now who maybe is thinking about making a significant career transition, what are some things that they could do to help prepare and make that as smooth as possible?
Sure. I think I don't want to leave the impression that this just is easy and it's like running to the grocery store and filling up your fridge. It takes a lot of reflection. It takes getting comfortable with the uncomfortable and the uncertainty. And so I would say one of the biggest helps that I found was really reaching out to people that I trusted and getting good counsel. This goes beyond mentorship. This is really, I use the phrase, your board of advisors. Who are those 6 or 7 people? They've got different perspectives. They've got different experiences,
right?
But they are vested in your success. They take a personal interest in you, and it's beyond your family.
Right.
These are smart business people.
Yeah. And sometimes it's hard to find those people. Sometimes it's a journey,
It is. And so asking them, say, that was part of my listening tours. I went to, I call them, my board of advisors. And a couple times I brought them all together at one time. And so we'd have some one-on-one conversations, and, I had an agenda and I had some specific topics I wanted to talk about, but they also gave me some good challenging homework assignments. And so, it was just this ongoing dialogue of saying, okay, they're vested in my success. Try this, or look here. Let me make an introduction for you. I think you ought to consider. And so really taking that to heart and doing that work, being detached from the outcome, that's a hard part.
Oh, I like that.
And so you have to say, I'm in that discovery phase. I'm just a researcher. I'm just looking for information. I'm not here to make any assumptions. I need to just absorb all of that information. And then making sense of it. So a couple times I brought that board together and I said, hey, these are a couple options I'm considering. Would you help me walk through some pros and cons?
Right.
What am I not thinking about? Where else do you see opportunity? What other questions might I ask? And they know who I am. And so they were brutally honest at times and said, hey,
well, chances are somebody probably did that for them somewhere during their career, and to pay it forward. And I know you do it.
I do it
for
a lot
other
with
people. Also,
Yeah.
I know you and I have had quite a few lunches, and it is great to pick each other's brains and to explore. You can never learn enough about yourself or about how you can improve personally and professionally. And I think when you find a group of people that all kind of thrive on that, they do tend to just get really creative and really helpful and really solution oriented. And it's productive. It's fun.
Well, and it goes back to one of my values. I work in partnership. I hold that term very high. It's the best professional relationship I know how to have. Thinking about how am I working in partnership, whether it's not an age thing, it's not a position thing, it is a way of being, saying I am mutually committed to your success and mine.
Which is interesting because so many people grow up being competitive and businesses are competitive. So to change that landscape, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I love that, going the complete opposite direction to say, what can this look like if we're actually partners? And you mentioned that early on when you acquired some businesses that had been competitors, but now we were on the same side of the table.
It's been a wonderful journey, but I think one of the things that I find most often when I talk to people making a transition is the hardest game is the internal game. It's the things you're telling yourself. It's the doubts. It's the am I good enough? How will I? What if somebody thinks X, Y, Z? It's just all of that negative speak that we wouldn't do that to a friend. I know that everybody says, would you talk to yourself like talk to your friend like you're talking to yourself? But that's why it's helpful to have somebody externally help. And it's humbling to ask for help.
Yeah.
You have to be courageous. You have to be open to what people say, because some of it's brilliant, a lot of it's good, and some of it's not so good.
Yeah.
It's not for you. And so that's why you have to just pause and take it all in so that you can distill it down to what is most relevant to you, what aligns to your values or your guiding principles. And that was one of the pieces that was kind of the final meeting we had, is looking at all these options. One of the advisors said to me, don't compare the options to each other. Compare the options back to your guiding principles. What does success look like for you? And then how does this option stack up to it?
Wonderful.
And so that really helped me distill both, what's a good short-term opportunity and a learning opportunity, and what's going to fulfill that long-term goal of, the things that I was hoping to try and experiment and achieve.
I love it.
So
Were there any particular books or any other resources that you used that you thought were helpful or would be helpful for our listeners going through this type of transition?
Well, one that I give people a lot, I have a whole closet full of extra copies, so give me a call, I'll get you a copy. It's The Building Career Equity by Jan Teresi Mokwa. The book is about this thick.
Okay.
But it really is broken down into some good fundamental little exercises that you can do or bring somebody along. I'll give it to college grads.
That's a great idea.
And say, hey, look, welcome to your career. Here's a way to be intentional about it. And this will help break that down. In fact, I've got a meeting with, he's now a manager at Deloitte. I gave him this book probably 6 years ago when he graduated. And we meet, I'm on his board of advisors. We meet twice a year. And we talk about his career and his goals. And I try to figure out ways to help him get closer to where he wants to be.
That's wonderful.
So, yeah.
Well, Susan, I thank you so much for sharing your journey. I think it's very inspirational, courageous.
Thank you.
I think it's definitely a good role model and a good, map for people to try to plot their own career after. I appreciate your time. This is Her Next Chapter. We look forward to seeing you next week.